Well. We may not have expected it, ladies and gentlemen, but now that it has happened, I will say, I get it. I get why Haas have given Nikita Mazepin's seat to Kevin Magnussen. I understand it. Go and check out my short if you want to know the 5 reasons why I think it makes all the sense in the world. But for this video, we are going to be chatting about, reacquainting ourselves with Kevin Magnussen. He's been out of the sport now for a year, just over it technically. Let's get to know him all over again, and I've thrown in a little bit of Yuki Tsunoda as well, so let's get into it. Look, as much as Nikita Mazepin had lots of detractors across F1 for his frankly often despicable behaviour off the track and lack of performance on the track, he was often accused of being a paid driver. Obviously, nobody could have anticipated the way that things would have ended up for him, and I will leave it up to you all to decide for yourselves whether or not you'll miss him. But regardless of what any of us think about the situation, the facts are Kevin Magnussen has been given a monumental 3rd shot at a Formula 1 seat, and I have no statistics to factually back this up, but I have to believe that that's way up there with the most amount of chances anyone has ever gotten to be an F1 driver. Normally you get 1, and if it doesn't work out, that's kind of it. Maybe you're, a more seasoned driver and you take a break and you come back, a la Kimi Räikkönen, Fernando Alonso, but to be as young as he is and to have come in and out as many times as he has is really quite unusual, and honestly kind of remarkable. And at this point he's probably just counting his lucky stars and honestly getting really excited, because at least he's come back in a year where, to a certain degree, lots of people are on an uncertain footing. So who knows, none of us know what this Haas car is going to be like in terms of performance, so let's not count him out just yet just because he's driving for Haas. Right, let's do a quick recap. So Kevin Magnussen entered Formula 1 back in 2014 with McLaren. He has also driven with Renault, and after that then ended up at Haas from 2017 to 2020. Now, he was partnered with Romain Grosjean at that time at Haas, and obviously both Kevin and Romain lost their seats to Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin for the 2021 season. And I hear you ask, what did Magnussen do in his year off? Well, he was not quiet. Ironically, he wrote a book about the ups and downs of his F1 career, and I'm guessing now he's going to have to write some sort of extended edition, because guess what? There's another bump in this road, and honestly, who would be complaining about a second book deal? Again, thanking his lucky stars, I am sure. He also had some big life news in 2021, so towards the end of the year he became a dad for the first time, and he has been posting some very cute photos of himself and his wife and his daughter Laura on social media, so I'm kind of hoping that continues because she's absolutely adorable. And I guess the downside for him in a way of this whole situation is being away from them when she's quite young, which all the drivers who have kids talk about how difficult that is. So if there is a downside, I guess it would be that. Kevin also did race in 2021 to a certain extent. He competed in Le Mans with Peugeot, and he had actually signed a deal to race with them on a more permanent basis from 2022 onwards. Plus, he had a deal with Chip Ganassi for the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Obviously, both of those deals have now fallen by the wayside because not only has he come back to Haas, he has come back to Haas on a multi-year contract. So they are really investing in Kevin, and he's going to be around for a couple of years. Outside of the other sports kind of arenas that I just mentioned, he also tried his hand at IndyCar. He was called up as a replacement for the Grand Prix of Road America. Unfortunately, he was not able to finish the race due to mechanical issues. But he's been doing bits and pieces, he hasn't been sitting quietly. So look, personally, I'm pleased for him. He may not light up the track with Haas, but he's always given off good vibes and people seem to really like him around the paddock, and my point of view, that goes a long way because you can't say that for all the drivers. And I do also think that he will be a great steadying force for Haas and for Mick Schumacher specifically. I think, although obviously we couldn't have predicted the way that things ended with Nikita Mazepin, I think having two rookies in that team in particular was a mistake in hindsight, and in a way, even despite all the drama, if you all that aside, they might be quite happy that they're now getting a combination of drivers that's a bit more, you know, traditional, in the sense that it is one younger driver and one older, more experienced driver, just to steady the ship. And I think, again, back to the multi-year contract piece, like, look towards the future in a more sort of reliable and structured way. Let's chat about Yuki Tsunoda. He's a bit of an interesting character when you look at the current F1 grid. He very much burst onto the scene at the start of last year. There was a huge amount of buzz around him, and, you know, Sky Sports F1 were doing a lot of coverage, like he was being interviewed by a lot of people, and I feel like it sort of died out pretty quickly for him. I think it was a difficult rookie year. He was, you know, partnered with Pierre Gasly, who had one of his most successful seasons yet in Formula One, and he just didn't quite match up to the original excitement. And I think that's partially why we saw angry Yuki on the team radio, and it wasn't the prettiest.
Fucking Paris, you fucking guys.
Okay, Yuki, let's push one step more on tires. We are good on tires. We need to cover for signs. Push, push.
Mate, I am. Look, could you say to the FIA, hurry up, fuck off, because what's the point I just want?
With all that being said, what does Yuki get up to when he's off the track? So it's very hard to say, actually. Typically with these videos, I don't have that much trouble having content or finding content, but Yuki posts shockingly little on Instagram in particular outside of his racing career. Even the photos of him that aren't necessarily at a track or in an F1 car have a race-related caption, so he's definitely been one of the harder drivers to research for this Driver Deep Dive series. But if you scroll back far enough, there are a couple of things of note, and you'll definitely notice that he has started to post more about working out and his physical fitness in the off season since the end of last season. He was interviewed recently and actually said that one of his biggest weaknesses he felt personally last year was his physical weaknesses. So he didn't feel like his endurance and his physical capabilities were up to scratch to allow him to perform at his best in the car. So he has actively been working towards making that a lot better and making himself a lot stronger for the season. So it will be interesting to see if there is, you know, a step up, a correlated step up that we can see there from him. He did also mention in that interview that the switch to 18-inch tires for him was not that strange, having recently come from F2. So you never know, he might have some kind of hidden benefits and, you know, some little pro tips that he saved up from his previous seasons in F2. So who knows what's going to happen with this guy this season. Similar to Pierre Gasly, he has definitely fully embraced the fashion-forward rebrand from Toro Rosso to AlphaTauri. He loves posting photos of him in their gear, and it kind of makes sense. He's the only Japanese driver on the grid, and he is representing for a very fashion-forward country, so it's nice to see him embrace that. And he's also into a non-motor racing sport, which I will give you just one chance to guess, because it is golf. We have another F1 golf lover, folks. It seems that the list just keeps on growing. It is inexhaustible, but I will say, in the videos that I have found of Yuki playing, I don't think he'll be setting the golf scene on fire anytime soon. No offense. I really do think that both of these drivers are unknown entities this season, even though we've obviously had Yuki around since last season and Kevin has raced in F1 before. I really do think that they may surprise us. They really may. They're sort of like flying under the radar. I obviously was initially planning to pair a different driver with Yuki for this series, but I'm kind of glad that it turned out to be Kevin because there is definitely a connection between these two, I feel. So I'm very curious to see how things end up. I would love to know what your thoughts are also, so please do drop a comment down below. Do you agree with Kevin being brought in by Haas? Do you think that the seat should have been given to someone else? A lot of chat around Oscar Piastri, Antonio Giovinazzi, so please do let me know what you thought. I will be hanging out with you all in the comments chatting about that once the video drops. And we're actually almost at the end of the Driver Deep Dive series for this season, which is kind of crazy. We have covered almost all of the drivers on the current F1 grid, with the exception of just a couple, and the videos will be coming out on those very soon. So make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss any of those follow-up videos and just generally just me posting on a weekly basis. Make sure you also give this video a thumbs up if you learned something new. And yeah, the drama, it would appear, is continuing from last season into this season. Let's find out what happens.